in 50, 60 years, the Montreal Anglos have gone from being Romans to being Anglo-Argentinians. There's a small trace of this. They have ethnic patterns and so on. Social life is slightly different than the rest, but they're still essentially assimilated. I think that something like that is going to have to be done here. It's not enough to have official English at the government level. I get email all the time from people in Eastern Washington State and places like this who say their kids can't get jobs in McDonald's and places like that because they don't speak French, they don't speak Spanish. So that essentially it's a ferocious attack upon the living standards of the American working class, the blue-collar workers, just as immigration policy in general is. I will finish up with a hopeful anecdote, though. My first wife, as I told you, who died, and some of you knew it, who died some years ago, was from Newfoundland, which is an island in the Atlantic. It's sort of saltwater Appalachia, really. And no French at all is spoken there. But she was completely bilingual. And she was bilingual because her father, that is to say, in the Canadian terms, it means she speaks French and English. Her father, like all Canadians, thought it would be a good idea to work with the federal government, and got pushed through French in school. So she was completely bilingual. But it had absolutely no effect. It didn't do what they thought it was going to do. It had absolutely no effect at all on her attitudes to Quebec and her tolerance for it and all this stuff. She retained all the traditional Newfoundland attitudes to Quebec, which is to say, she thought they were all thieves, and should give back the Churchill Falls, which is it's a great rip-off on the Newfoundland taxpayer, the Churchill Falls, which is rather arcane. I'll talk about it later. Basically, they can't get power out of the Churchill Falls except through Quebec, and the Quebecers have stolen all the money. There's a deal on what they can pay for it. The only practical effect of her speaking French was that we had to go to Paris every year. And she was, in fact, living in Paris when I married her. I had to come to Washington, which she didn't actually forgive me for a long time. The moral is it doesn't work, you know. These great social engineering programs don't work. And even though Joe Clark was a completely useless Prime Minister, even nearly as bad as George W. Bush. So the fact is, there is a Quebec... There is a Quebec government now that has been elected predominantly from English Canada. It does not require the Quebec vote to win. They've assembled a majority out of English Canada alone, something which I predicted in my Canadian book 25 years ago would eventually happen. Now, they haven't actually done very much about it because, of course, they're still under the ideological pressure, the ideological hegemony of the Liberals and the official language myth. But it's going to happen.